All right, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Shofar Mountain. I'm PJ. I don't mean to be talking down to you. My tripod is somewhere else, and I'm not going to go get it. So I'm reading this week's Torah portion, Maketz. If you do the Torah portions every week, by the end of the year, you will have completed reading all of Torah, which is simply, as most of you know, the first 5 books of the Bible. And this week's Torah portion is Maketz, and it is Genesis 44:1 to 44:17. And of course, there's a lot of good things in it, right? We're going to talk about that as a congregation later today. And the way we do Torah portion as a congregation is we take turns reading. Just a volunteer will read typically a chapter of it, and then we kick it around. We midrash, what about this? What about this? Let's turn here and look at this kind of thing. And it takes a long time. Many of y'all have said, why don't you tape that? Because most of the people in the congregation don't want to be on film. And it doesn't lend itself to a nice tight film. But there is something I found today that I would like to talk about a little bit, things for you to consider out of this particular Torah portion. And I guess it's based partly on the fact that just because of who I am and my other channels and things like that, that a lot of y'all, if not all y'all, are preppers. I have a video, I think it's on YouTube, called Prepping is a Biblical Concept or something like that. And it is. But I thought what I have to say today may come of interest to you. So, let's just do it. In chapter 41, Pharaoh, you should go back and read it. Matter of fact, you should go read Genesis 41:1 to 44:17. And actually, if you just read 41 for this part, that'll be fine. Hit pause, go read chapter 41 of Genesis, then come back. Those of you who didn't do that, who didn't go back, didn't hit pause and go back and read Genesis 41, shame on you. You know what I think? You're just like, feed me. I don't want to do any work myself. Go read the word. It's there for you. You have one more chance. Go read chapter 41 of Genesis. All right. So now here we are. The Pharaoh has a dream. And none of his people can interpret it. And so, bada bing, bada boom, you get to it. Joseph ends up coming. And God, Elohim, through Joseph, interprets the dream. And it's basically that there's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. And, it's going to make everybody forget the 7 years of plenty. Excuse me. That's the interpretation of the dream. And, oh my, what do we do? And so Pharaoh appoints Joseph over Egypt. And Joseph says basically, hey, we need to store up grain in these 7 years of plenty so that we have it in the 7 years of famine. And so the first thing I'm thinking about is what you and I, are living in right now are the fat times. They're the good times, whether you believe it or not, whether your little personal circumstances or not. These in general are the fat times. You can go buy anything you want. Do you want 10 pounds of rice? Do you want 1,000 pounds of rice? It's available. And it's not that expensive. Yes, I know prices are going up, but these are the fat times. You can get what you want. Do you want a case of Chef Boyardee ravioli? You can get it. There's no famine right now. And so a lesson here, and I don't know if I said this or not, because this is like my third time trying to shoot this, a little bit out of practice. This is a Torah portion where there is no commandment in it. There's no, one of the 613. It's not in here. It doesn't mean there's not goodness in here. It doesn't mean there's not things for us to learn. And so we're in the fat times. Do you think bad times are coming? Do you think they are? I mean, we could turn that into a whole teaching. Yeah, they are. It's interesting they use 7 years. 7 years of plenty, 7 years of famine. How long is tribulation? Hmm? Hmm? Many of us feel that we are on the cusp of such a thing. We're not there yet. You can go buy things. Plague is not throughout the land, despite what they tried to make you think about the vid. But it's coming. Starvation and things like that. And so if the Egyptians are under, as we find out, the leadership of Joseph, to gather food during the 7 years of plenty so that they have food during the 7 years of famine, what lesson can you draw from that? Right? You should be gathering food now. How much food? Well, we get the impression that this dream, they're at the beginning of the 7 years of plenty. And Joseph tells them that they should save 20%. Look at chapter 41, verse 34. Genesis 41, verse 34. Joseph speaking, "Let Pharaoh do this. Let him appoint officers over the land and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years." A 5th part of everything they produce. That's 20%. Are you putting 20% of your income? 20% of your income. Are you putting that into food storage? Not food that you're eating today, not going out to eat. 20% of your salary into food storage. And if you're a little bit behind the power curve, you might want to up your game. Right? 20%? I know, that's a lot. Joseph said, hey, take 20% of all the fruit of the land and we'll put that into storage. And so I think that there's a lesson there. If you happen to think, like many of us do, that we are in the fat times, but they could be coming to an end and the times of scarcity are coming, 20% might be a good number. Most of y'all aren't putting 3% into food storage. Lesson there. All right, so that's one thing I wanted to bring out. There's a lot of other things in here. There's a lot of other points. I'm focusing on the prepping point right now. Another one is this, chapter 41, verse, we'll just start in 47. "And in the 7 plenteous years, the earth brought forth by handfuls." So in the plenteous years, there was a lot, right? Excuse me. "And he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, Mitzrayim, and he laid up the food in the cities. The food of the field which was round about every city laid he up in the same. And Joseph gathered," says corn in King James. It really means grain. There was no corn in that part of the world. King James English. "Gathered grain as the sand of the sea, very much until he left numbering, for it was without number." And so the interesting thing here is a couple things. One, the way cities were set up in the days, everybody lived here in pretty tight confines, I might add, and then all around them are the fields that they produce their food in the fields. It's not like, I've got my little piece, you've got your little piece, you've got your... No, here we are. It worked in medieval Europe too, very similar. And so we're not bringing all the grain of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, to one big storehouse. I've heard people say that before. He brought all the grain to the pyramids or something like that. No. Each city, which is like the hub of a greater region, if you will, gathered all the grain from around it into it. And then here's a city over here, and it gathers it all into here. And here's a city over here, and it gathers it all. What does that do? That creates regional storehouses for food, so that if you live here, you don't have to go all the way across the country to get your food or send a wagon for it or whatever. It's already distributed around the country. Tribe is a thing, and tribe is coming back. And some of you are already well ahead. And let's say you have a team, a crew of preppers, a family, extended family that are all going to come together. And then you've made relationships with people over here and people over here and people over here. Well, should each group have all the food put in one central location for all the groups together? No. This group has their food, this group has their food, this group has their food. And you gather it up. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Mitzrayim, the Pharaoh, is in charge of Egypt, right? And so, yeah, he could easily say, consolidate all the food in Washington, D.C. I'm mixing metaphors. No. Let's consolidate all the food. How much food? 20%. Let's save that, but let's do that by region. And so spread it out a little bit. I think that's a lesson that could be played with. And then there was one more in here. Oh, yeah, here it is. And so the 7 years of plenty end, right? And the famine begins. But hey, Pharaoh was smart and he listened to Joseph, who listened to Yah. And so they have this food for the people. They have stored up food for 7 years. 20% of their food, they stored it up. And now the people need the food. So what do? They just hand it out, right? Wait in line, get your wristband, we'll give you some food. We're going to disarm you first, bring you in this camp, we'll give you MREs, right? Is that what they do? No. No, they don't give the food away to the people. What do you mean they don't give it away? They saved it all. They made the people give up 20%, and now they're not giving it away? Look at this, verse 56. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and what? Sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came to Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, grain, because that the famine was so sore in all the lands. Buy. And we can read later what they paid for, what they paid with. Don't feel bad if you store up lots and lots of grain, of food, and the time comes and you decide to sell it. You don't have to give it away. That's not the principle being taught here. Who's coming to buy grain? The people who didn't think ahead, who didn't have their grain. Oh, that kind of brings us back to the 10 virgins, 5 wise and 5 foolish. And the 5 foolish virgins say to the 5 wise virgins, hey, our oil's about to go out. Give us some of yours so our oil doesn't run dry. And the 5 wise virgins, they go, we're not giving you squat. If we give it to you, we won't have any. Go. Buy it yourself. They waited too long and bad things happened to them. What are the main points? Store food. These are the times of plenty. Store a lot of food. 20% of your income you should be putting into food. Pastor Joe, it's 20% of the food they produced. Okay, whatever. Draw your own conclusion there. Store it in dispersed locations for your greater group. I'm not talking about for your family. I'm talking about for your greater group, which another whole teaching for another time. And don't be afraid to sell it when the time comes and enrich yourself. All right. I hope that was useful. As always, I'm interested in your polite comments. I don't brook on my channels people saying what I said is a lie and blah, blah, blah. I just delete you. But if you want to have intelligent conversation, that's fine. Amongst yourselves. All right. God bless.